For anybody who's aware of the amount of Mafia Man Bought Me Wattpad stories that exist on the internet, it might surprise you to know that Mafia romance is actually a very well-established subgenre in the romance world. And that's been the case for a pretty long time, but in the modern day, it's experiencing a bit of a renaissance. So if you're looking for something where the premise is, I was sold to the Mafia, I am myself a Mafia princess who has to marry a dangerous man from a rival faction, I am in love with a mafioso who has stolen my heart, and also 12 million in jewelry from the Smithsonian. It's pretty easy to get recommendations from TikTok. Actually, even if you're not looking for anything like that, you might end up getting them anyways, and I am nothing if not curious to the end of this world. So in today's video, we're going to be reading several of the most popular, the most recommended TikTok Mafia romance books. We are going to dive deep into this wonderful den of depravity together, and God willing, we won't drown. I won't die here, and I'll come out the other side and tell you what I've learned and what I've discovered through this process. The first book that I'm reading for this is Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. This is allegedly a good place to start, according to several videos, so it is where I will be starting. I also want it on record before I start this video that I'm going into this experiment both skeptical and also with an open mind. I have definitely had some poor experiences with most new adult TikTok romance novels. Most of them have been this level of ridiculous that is frankly unattainable for mere mortals like you and I. And it's not that I expect the Mafia books to be less ridiculous than the not Mafia books. I don't. Obviously, the addition of organized crime in a romance setting will be both silly and goofy. But because of that, I do have some hope in my heart that these books will be a little bit more like self-aware of their goofiness. So that's what I'm hoping for these. We'll see if it ends up working. I will be unbearably honest in either case. They're a match made in hell. So the plot to this book is you have these two rival mafia families, the Italian mafia and the Irish mafia in Chicago. No idea if they're connected, how they're connected elsewhere in the world to other mafias. This information is not known to us at this time, but they're beefing. They hate each other. It's been like this ever since they were financial rivals during Prohibition. And Ida, the main character and the youngest daughter of the Italian mafia, she convinces her brothers one night to crash a birthday party that the Griffins are hosting. No particular reason for this. She's not looking to get any information for her family. She just, quote, hates it when people have fun without her. So they break in and split up, and instead of actually going to this party, Ida decides to sneak into the mansion and snoop around. Once again, no discernible goal in mind. Ida, for the record, is not involved with the family business whatsoever. She kind of just takes classes at Loyola and fucks around because she's the baby of the family. So she's not going to get any intel. She kind of just does this for fun. And because she is not subtle and has no plan, she almost ends up getting caught by Callum, who is the male main character and the heir to the Irish mafia. But fortunately, she's able to hide just in time, except then she gets really impatient waiting for Callum to leave the room, and she decides that the only way to escape is to set the nearby curtains on fire and burn down his house right in front of him. That's how she plans on getting out of this one. Extremely bright, Ida. Obviously, this goes poorly, and Ida had also stolen a watch from the mantle for literally no reason at all. Once again, just vibes. And when confronted by Callum about this, she takes it and she just throws it into the nearby lake, never to be seen again, just as a fuck you to this guy. And it turns out that that watch was a precious family heirloom. So Callum, a mafia man, is just like, well, we should kill her and her brothers and her entire family for this. And Ida's brothers are also riding a similar wave. They're like, yeah, we should kill him and his entire family before they get to us. But before anybody can do anything, any debauchery, the men, the fathers, the heads of the family sit down for like 3 hours and half of a bottle of wine, and they come up with a solution to bring peace between the families after all of this time. And that brilliant solution is that Ida and Callum have to get married and bring together the bloodlines and unite them with children. How cool. So that's what's going on. And I'm about 100 pages in at this point, but before I tell you all of my thoughts, if you would like to avoid getting bought by a mafia man, if you would like the mafia men to not know what you're browsing on the internet, if you would like to spoof your location from Finland for some reason, just for fun, you're in luck, because Past Me is about to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, which is NordVPN. If you've ever been traveling out in the world and found that you can't watch Survivor anymore on Paramount Plus, or that your favorite Netflix shows are gone, or maybe you're just worried about security on public networks like hotels, coffee shops, anything like that, having a VPN could be very helpful for you. And fortunately, NordVPN is the best one. They're up to the challenge. If you've never heard of VPNs before, they're services that mask your IP address and protect your online identity. They can make it look like you're from anywhere in the world, so that way whatever you're browsing, it's private and secure. And NordVPN is especially neat because in addition to all of that basic stuff, it also has its Threat Protection Pro software, which really keeps you safe from viruses, malware, all of the nasty stuff that you might find out there on the internet. And also it doubles as an ad blocker, so you have less annoying pop-ups as you're browsing. NordVPN also has a dark web monitor to keep track of if you're a part of any data breach breaches, like your usernames and passwords getting out to all of the very scary dark romance protagonists out in the world who are looking for such information. And overall, NordVPN is driven to just give you a very safe and private and secure browsing experience. If you're interested, you can use the link in my description to get a massive discount off of 2 full years of NordVPN, plus an additional 4 months just for you as a treat. And through this deal, you also get a 20 gigabyte data voucher for Saley, which is Nord Security's new eSIM service. So if you're traveling outside of your home country and you want to have data on your phone so you can use maps and not get lost, as I have many times, Saley is a really great solution to that. That also doesn't require you to like stand in line and buy a new physical SIM card that you then have to switch out into your phone at risk of losing your old one on vacation. A digital SIM like Saley is very seamless and easy to use, and 20 gigabytes for free comes with this bundle. So once again, I strongly encourage you to click the link in my bio to get all of those massive discounts and all of this very cool stuff. And if you are at all dissatisfied with any of it, Nord also offers a 30-day money-back guarantee. So pretty risk-free. Thank you again to NordVPN for sponsoring this video. I really appreciate it. And let's get back to it. Okay, welcome back. On to my thoughts so far. I do want to say that I find it hilarious that it took like 2 hours in universe for the heads of the families to quash this generations-long blood feud. I just really feel like that could have been done prior to the arson attempts, but that's just me. In any case, Ida in this book so far is, if nothing else, a unique character. I feel like her only personality trait, sincerely, is just wanting to fuck around and find out. Like, she just does shit with not a single thought inside of her head and then faces consequences for it and is like, oh no, how could this have happened to me? Or alternatively, she doesn't face any consequences at all, even when she definitely should. Like, on their wedding day, pretty early on in the book, Ida had previously found out that Callum was deathly allergic to strawberries, so she eats a ton of strawberries and like coats the inside of her mouth so that way when he kisses her after their vows, he'll get poisoned and maybe die. And she does this in clear view of both of their families. Like, blood feud, by the way, generations of murder and turmoil, by the way. Have I mentioned the past histories of violence for every single person inside of this room? Because that is an insane thing to do just for shits with no real plan. But fortunately, Callum's mom has an EpiPen, so he doesn't die, and somehow nobody there catches on. They're all just like, oh, you just must not have known about the strawberries that could have killed the heir to our dynasty. Honest mistake, happens all the time. You're definitely not a threat to the tenuous peace between our families. And she just completely gets away with it with no consequences at all, except for Callum. He like drowns her for a little bit in the pool later as a treat, so that way she knows what it's like to not breathe. Just very wholesome, their relationship. But yeah, that's her whole thing. She kind of just does shit for fun. But she also sees herself as something of an intellectual. Like, she quotes The Art of War out loud with her full chest to Callum, and then also to herself inside of her internal monologue. I smile up at him and say, amid chaos, there is also opportunity. Callum stares at me blankly. What the fuck are you talking about? Does that mean you're going to make the best of this mess? Sure. What else can I do? Actually, it's a quote from The Art of War. Here's another one I like. Let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt. And again, she was not involved in the family business or anything. She was kind of just a girl prior to the start of this book. Like, this is from her brother a few pages before that. Don't do anything stupid, Sebastian warns me. This is serious, Ida. It's not like your semester in Spain or that internship you took at Pepsi. You can't just skip out of this if you don't like it. And just pick a lane. You can't be a degenerate college student and then also quote The Art of War like you're 17 moves ahead of your generational chess rival. Also, you're at peace now, okay? The blood feud has been cured, and I get it. You probably don't want to arrange marry this man, and that's unfortunate for you, but maybe don't plan his murder. Maybe think about what the consequences of that could be, because I feel like the impact on you and your family, it could be fairly deleterious. I just feel like there have to be other ways for you to fight for your freedom a little bit without putting the lives of everybody that you have ever held dear at risk, you know? Who's to say though? What do I know? Also, this man so far, Callum, I don't like him. He's like running for this sub-mayor role, kind of ruling over this little district, and he's got a lot of the standard issue dark romance, alpha male, possessive, ownership over the protagonist kind of stuff going on. Never something I've been into, to be honest with you, but Ida hates it as well at this point, so that's something for now to hold on to. But that's that. We're in my new apartment right now, by the way. I'm gonna keep reading. I don't know how much I'm gonna get through tonight. We'll see. Talk soon. Okay, so I finished this last night and then also today. The general arc of this, following what I've already told you about the premise, is just they start to smash all of the time somewhere around the first third of the book, which of course makes them fall in love because maybe they are not so different. Maybe they aren't enemies. Maybe they're allies against the Polish mafia, who are like the shitties and the brokies. They're the bad guys, according to Callum. Boo to the Polish mafia. But the smut montage is of course followed by some kidnappings and some violence, just some fun little murder subplots towards the end of the book, all woven into to this story of this man running for office in Chicago as a corrupt politician in order to bring glory to his family. Overall, this read very similarly to smutty old school Wattpad, which for me in my current day and age is a pretty significant con. I tend to prefer that my trashy novels that I read as little treats for me have more of an AO3 flavor to them, and this is not that. This is very much like an under the high school desk Wattpad mafia romance. Some quotes for you to describe my reading experience that I think do it better than I ever could. If there's a hierarchy to gangsters, it goes something like this. At the top, you've got your white-collar gentrified gangsters who use the levers of business and politics to maintain their control. That's the Irish in Chicago. We run this city. We've got more gold than a fucking leprechaun. Me when my mafia man runs both the barter economy but also the regular economy. Me when he has a traditional IRA. They want to pluck me and exfoliate me and rub off all of my rough edges. Make me some smooth, soft little wifey for the scion of their family. The great Callum Griffin. He's their JFK, and I'm supposed to be their Jackie Kennedy. I'd rather be Lee Harvey Oswald. Honestly, low-key a bar. This book would have been a lot better if she'd succeeded in killing him. I wake up with my hands tied over my head, suspended from a meat hook. This is not a great position for me. So true, so true. Don't you just hate it when that happens to you? Jack is already waiting by the town car, holding the door. He's been marginally nicer to me since robbing the casino with my brothers and cousin. I don't know if it's because he likes my family or because he's scared of them. He hasn't made a single rude comment since, and I haven't had to shoot him at all. Growth. Wow. Yeah, I think that this is probably a 2-star adventure for me. I mean, I can see why somebody would find this to be silly and fun in the same way that I found Wattpad to be silly and fun when I was younger. Like, it is in many ways impossible to take seriously, and it's aware of that. Like, the internal monologues are goofy, but it wasn't my variety of silly or goofy. I think that the way the relationship develops just felt very unsatisfying. Like, they go pretty instantly once they smash from wanting to quite literally murder each other to being all soft and allies and in love, and I just need some more yearning, I think, in between. I'm a yearner. It's what I require, and I think that was something big that was missing here. I also never buy the cold, rugged alpha hero to sweet little cinnamon roll boyfriend pipeline that we very much see here. I find it highly suspicious. I don't trust men in general, but especially like that in real life. Also worth noting here, and this is really only mentioned like one time in passing, but Callum in this book is like 29 or so, and Ida is like 19 or 20, I think. She's in college. And I just want to know, like asking for a friend, why you need to have an age gap like that just floating around in the background of the book. Like, I wouldn't say that this is an age gap trope. Like, they don't even really speak about it. I don't think it's just mentioned one time in internal monologue and then never again. It is never relevant to anything. Like, she could have easily been 25 and it would have tangibly changed nothing about this entire book. And just, what's the point? Why put that in? It just makes the relationship so much less believable for no reason. It's just an interesting little observation for you. Next up, we are reading Den of Vipers, and I am aware vaguely that this is the book equivalent of diving straight from the shallows into the deep end, but it is what we are going to do. If you've never heard of Den of Vipers before, I envy you and encourage you to turn back now. But it is a reverse harem with, I think, 4 men. Very cool. The premise very much gives My Mom Sold Me to One Direction, except they're all dangerous mafia men instead. The book has a long and diverse list of trigger warnings that really should turn anybody away who cares about their health and or safety, but here we both are. This book was like giga viral a couple of years ago on TikTok, but I loved myself enough at the time to avoid it entirely. But now I feel that someone's gotta do it, okay? Someone's gotta take it for the team, don the bulletproof vest, and just dive headfirst into the front lines. I have no desire at all to own this physically, so I bought it on my Kindle. My Kindle, for the record, is already battle scarred. It came out of my backpack in the trunk of a Jeep once when we were riding over some sand dunes, so it bounced around and got all sorts of fucked up, and I don't have any stickers or anything to make it better. There's really nothing cute to see here. Take her how she is, okay? She's useful for moments exactly like this one. Not this opening with a quote from Buddha. Just as a snake sheds its skin, we must shed our past over and over again. So true. So true. Oh man, I'm getting war flashbacks to Credence. Ooh, okay, we'll carry on. I need to not just read every single quote in this book because this video will be way too long, but listen to this. I step forward from the dark, and that's when Rob starts to cry. He knows what I am. Death. Ryder might be the face, Garrett might be the enforcer, the muscle, and Kenzo the dealer. But me? I'm the fucking Grim Reaper. Free her! Free her! Free me from my torment. I am only on page 3. Okay, I'm still only in the first 10 pages, but one more before I start holding myself together. I just have to share that not only does the main character, Roxy, have silver hair, she also owns a bar and thinks this to herself. Everyone knows Roxers, and everyone knows me, and not to fuck with me. There's a reason they all call me Swinger, and it ain't cause I go to sex parties. Sliding closer to the bar, I slip my hand behind it, connecting with the smooth wood of my trusty bat, the bitch smacker. I said, we're closed. Better get out, boys. Oh, it's just so much sillier than I thought it would be. I don't know how I'm expected to make it through like 600 more pages of this. Okay, carrying on. This time for real, maybe. Okay, last one for now, I promise, but I just... I take more time with my makeup, applying my signature red lipstick, dark liner, and eyeshadow, making my brown eyes pop. Some call me a typical rocker chick. I even have the piercings to go along with the tats and makeup. Letting the towel drop to the floor, I head into my bedroom again and get dressed. I slip into matching red front-closing bra and panties. My one vice. Well, that and band merch. I add a signed tour shirt from the Killers and tie it at the side before slipping into some tattered black shorts and my trusty high-heeled biker boots. It is so strongly giving Ebony Darkness Dementia Raven way, getting dressed up to go talk to Draco and Harry. This is a surreal experience. Get with the times or die. So true. The girl is safe from me. Not that I won't kill her, cause I will. I hate to do women like that, but sometimes I have to. I also hate it when that happens, when you have to do women like that, where you murder them because you're in the mafia and they go against your interests. It just happens all the time. Let me go, I demand, but he ignores me. Your father sold you. You're ours now. His tone is so matter-of-fact that I want to explode again. I'm a human. You can't just sell another person, I scream. It seems we can. What am I reading? It's like My Immortal, My Dad Sold Me to One Direction, human trafficking version. Also, I want to say, they're all brothers, and that scares me for my future. What is this? Okay, 100-page update. This book genuinely is evil. Like, I knew that this was going to be bad, but this book is making me feel like I need both a shower and a lobotomy at the same time. Let me run you through what's going on. So you have the main character, her name is Roxanne, 2 exes. She has been sold because of her father's debt to the Vipers, who are the mafia men in this book. They own a gigantic skyscraper called the Viper Skyscraper. They're like super rich and wealthy and influential and corrupt and all that. So that's where she lives now. And the 4 men have fairly distinct vibes. Ryder, like in Red Ryder, he is the leader. He wears suits and is calculated. Kenzo, with a K, he is the guy who like runs all of the gambling dens and like makes all of the negotiations and stuff. I truly believe that he is supposed to be this book's version of like the tall, dark-haired, sarcastic male lead, except he's also psychotic because all of these men are psychotic. So take that as you will. Garrett is the bodyguard. He's the muscle and he seems normal at first. For like the first 20 pages, you're like, wow, maybe he's a nice man. Maybe one of the male protagonists is at all rootable in this book. And then like 10 pages later, you find out that he hates women. He hates women so much that it's like worth special mention from the rest of the psychotic men in his family. And also he prize fights and beats people within inches of death in this underground fighting ring, all because of some unknown trauma in his past that involves a woman. I mean, surely we're gonna find out what this is at some point. But the last guy is named Diesel, like the fuel. And if you thought that the other members of One Direction sounded kind of tough, I regret to inform you that he is significantly worse. He's like the token sadist in the family, which really, I can't imagine means good things for Roxanne with 2 exes. Plot-wise, we just have Roxanne lashing out about the whole being kidnapped thing by destroying a bunch of property inside of this house, which honestly is justified. These men do not deserve to have possessions. But yeah, she's just doing that while the Vipers handle business of some sort. Kind of unclear what they're actually doing, but they're very important, I assure you. They have interests that they need to protect. Ooh. So yeah, that's what's going on. Again, this is simultaneously the goofiest thing I've ever read, but also like so evil. Just deeply morally wrong. If this was not so poorly written, I actually think it would be kind of impossible to get through. Like, you need the brief moments of levity that is the inner monologue of these characters just being the dumbest shit you've ever seen. If not for that, you would have to face what's actually happening in this book, which is bonkers. And I'm not even at the part where they're smashing yet, so cool. On that note, I'm gonna go take a shower and then probably read more of this book. I think that's my future tonight. Woohoo. Okay. Stupid fucking it doesn't seem to care that they bought us, or that they probably plan to kill us. She's a hussy and is all like, yes, but they're hot.
bastards. I mean, yes, they're hot. Attractive would be an understatement. They all look like statues of Greek gods, perfectly carved with abs that don't come from sitting around all day. They work hard to be the best at everything, and that clearly includes being the best looking. It's not fair and has my hormones all confused. I hate them. I do. I want to kill them, but also kind of want to screw them. Brilliance. Me when the mafia men who bought me are hot. Stockholm Syndrome Simulator. Engaged.
Hi, I'm like 28% of the way through this, according to my Kindle, which for the record is like page 170. And I think that finishing this book is going to require a level of inner strength for me that I have not had to use since like the dark semesters of college. It's a level of bad that I haven't experienced in a very long time. Like just on a craft level, every third sentence in this book is comma spliced. Like there are so many mistakes and run-ons that it's actually insane. I just feel like I'm slowly losing my grip on reality with every moment that I spend reading this book. And I just don't know what's going to justify this being 650 pages. I don't understand it. There's no real plot. Like the Vipers are just dealing with some kind of poorly described threat to them and to their control over the city. And Roxanne with 2 X's is just being horny on main for them, despite the fact that they kidnapped her after her dad sold her. I will say that I expected this book to have more outright non-con inside of it than it does. I mean, like there are definitely parts that are a little bit bad, but honestly nothing insane because she really is just down for anything. Not to be strategic and like try to stay alive because she's aware of this power imbalance, but really because her brain is just so cooked that she sees all of these men and all she can think is, wow, so sexy, so hot, so captor, but still so sexy. If captor, why so hot? If captor, why so many tattoos? Like that's her thought process all of the time, genuinely. They didn't even have to Stockholm her. Like she Stockholmed herself within the first 1/6 of this book. They stole me, I remind myself, but it feels weak, even to me. Did they? After all, they were just trying to collect their debt. It ain't their fault my dad sold me. I mean, they could have said no, or just let me be free, but I guess they have a reputation to uphold. What? Huh? Also, the outfit descriptions have not ended. Ryder, the businessman who wears a waistcoat, he bought Roxanne a bunch of designer versions of her old clothes and her old aesthetic, so she'll describe herself as like putting on this black leather biker jacket with spikes on the shoulders over her little black dress that shows too much skin. Oh no, what will the Vipers think? What will her captors say about that? It's just so ridiculous. Like, I can't believe that I thought the first book that I read in this video was that bad, because in comparison to this, Brutal Prince deserves like a Pulitzer. Like they're having these goofy found family moments. I look over to see Roxy patting Dee's chest. Dee, Diesel, like the sadomasochist, like a dog. Good boy. I'll share my cake if you don't kill anyone all the way through dinner. But what if they need killing? He asks, frowning at her. Then let Garrett do it, she suggests sweetly. Dee sighs dramatically and slumps. Fine, little bird, only because you asked so nicely. And you're reading things like that, but then 2 pages later in Diesel's internal monologue, he'll be like, yeah, I do kind of want to skin her alive though. Wouldn't that be really cool? And it's just like, what am I reading? She was sold to these men and was cool with it within like 4 or 5 days and 3 destroyed property attempts, simply because they are hot. Like the bar is in a place worse than hell. But that's it. That's all that's going on. And I get that the author has to like shuffle and make smut out of all of the different permutations inside of this like love pentagon that she has going on here. But 500 more pages of that, like what is inside of here? It like can't just be smut, right? God, normally I'm not this hardcore when I dislike a book, but this is truly something else. Anyways, it's Saturday today. I'm really gonna try to finish this. I don't know if that's realistic. I guess we'll see, but that's the plan. I hope for both of our sakes that I'm still a person when you see me next.
They need me too. I know it. I see it. They want me here, all apart from Garrett. Yeah, they're criminals, but half the people I know are. Yes, they can be cold, evil bastards. And this relationship didn't start off in the best way. But whatever does in real life. They aren't knights in shining armor. No, they are the villains in the dark, with brooding eyes and beast-like tendencies. I never needed a knight. I needed a body to stand with me in the dark. And these snakes, they do. Like recognizes like. Maybe their venom is infecting me. Maybe it's Stockholm Syndrome. Maybe I just don't fucking care. I've never felt so alive. They care. They notice. Their wounds might be harsh and their touch is mean, but only because I don't think they know how to love any better than I do. I guess we're going to learn together, because now, I'm all in. I'm walking willingly back into that den of vipers and holding out my arm to be bitten. Let's just hope it doesn't kill me. Disclaimer, what I'm about to describe is fairly vague, but also so insane and graphic that honestly maybe just skip to the next part if you don't feel very comfortable handling insane and graphic things. I just had to share my plight with the world in this moment and be thankful that you don't have to read 70 chapters of this, okay? But yeah, that's your warning. Maybe skip this part to when I have a slightly different background. I don't know. I'm 41% of the way into this book. I just read smut so bad that I wish I could like factory reset my brain into being the way that it was before. I don't even know how much of this I can say on this family-friendly platform. Diesel, the friendly neighborhood sadomasochist, was tasked with torturing somebody that they caught, and Roxanne with 2 X's wanted to watch. So they go down to the basement, they do the thing and get the information that they need for this super irrelevant subplot where people are apparently trying to take down the Vipers, but it actually doesn't matter at all because every chapter of this book at this point is just smut. And afterwards, Diesel, takes him out with an implement, sanitizes it because he is a gentleman, and then he puts Roxanne up in the chains where this guy who is now dead was hanging out, and he takes the implement and shoves the handle up her ass, and then he snaps a pic for the group chat to show the boys what he's up to and how hot she is. And if that wasn't enough, then they start smashing, except the implement is still there, so he just starts stabbing himself in the abdomen as they're smashing, except he's so good at his job, he knows all of the things that there are to know about human anatomy because he tortures 9 to 5. What a way to make a living. So he dodges, of course, all of the possible internal organs that he could be rupturing. All of them are completely intact, and then afterwards she has to give him stitches. So to her credit, she was completely down. Once again, this book has way more consent than I thought it would. At least one of us was having a good time. Oh god. Also, if they use the phrase my cream, her cream, one more time, I am going to lose my mind. She is not a dairy aisle. I think that this is the worst book. I think I found it. Well, on that note, I am still not halfway. Also worth mentioning that all 4 of them have different pet names for her. I think I'm gonna make a chart. Here's my chart if I've made it. Ryder calls her Love and Kenzo calls her Darling. Garrett calls her Baby, but Diesel calls her his little bird, or occasionally his dirty little bird. And I hate that. I hate it so much. I don't even know how to describe to you how much that makes me want to crawl out of my own skin and burn down the buildings I'm in. So yeah, just thought you should know as an addendum to that scene. 65% update. We've gotten through our first plot point so far this book. Yep, our first one. Also on my Kindle, I've been highlighting some of the most egregious comma splices so far. Let me share some with you. I didn't bother to put a bra on. Sometimes your tatas just have to go free. I want police at all 3 doors. Arrest them on any charges, show them up, let them know it's from us, and shut down that restaurant. Repossess it. It's ours now. Oh, this one has a good follow-up, because for context, the only plot point so far to happen in this book, other than the initial premise, is that they freed her and gave her the choice to leave and not stay forever because her dad sold her. And she loves them now and thinks they're really hot, so she decided to stay. And Diesel goes, "You thought I would let you leave? I told you, you're mine. They would have had to kill me to stop me from coming after you." And in her internal monologue, she thinks, "I melt at that. Once, it would have scared me. The first time I saw him, I thought him mad. He still is. Fucking batshit. But he's my batshit." So true. So true. So that's what I'm dealing with. And at some point, it's I have no one to blame but myself. I feel like I should have known what I was getting myself into with this. But I feel like it's impossible to capture to you succinctly the psychic strain of reading an entire book that's made up of quotes at the caliber that I've read to you so far, and to have nothing even happen in them. I hate all of these men. I don't think that any of them deserve rights. They're not going to be left alive during the gender revolution. Nothing they have said or done has endeared any of them to me, and therefore this book, which rests on me caring even slightly about any of them, it's not very good. Also, I just want to say that they already did the all 4 of them at once scene, so I don't even know what this is building up to at this point. I feel like we've already kind of peaked. Why do you need another 250 pages? Are you going to attempt to have plot in the 11th hour? Because I don't believe you. I honestly don't think that you're capable of it after what I've seen so far. But yeah. Anyways, we carry on. Good morning. I finished this last night. God, I don't know what to say. I feel like I'm a worse person than I was before I read this book. We got some more plot towards the end. Spoilers inbound, I guess, if you care, which you shouldn't, but I'll tell you about it. It won't take very long. So Roxanne, with 2 X's, was let go. She was given her freedom, but of course she chooses to stay with One Direction. More smut to celebrate the fact that she's no longer a captive. Then she gets kidnapped by Garrett's ex-girlfriend, who made him hate women, who also happens to be in cahoots with the other mafia that's trying to take down the Vipers. One
One Direction, of course, rescues her, but then Garrett gets counter-kidnapped by his ex-girlfriend, so they have to rescue him, but then they all have to heal from their injuries that they got during this, but 20% of the book is still left, and it's just all smut. And then at the end, they kidnap a judge, and they force him to marry Roxy to all of them. Not all of them to each other. That would be gay. We can't have that. Just Roxy to each of these 4 men. And then they get this big house together that they live in, and they paint it black, like their souls. And that's the end. 650 pages, and that is all that you get for plot. A quote that I would like to read to you from one of these rescue scenes. This is Diesel's POV. Grabbing another knife, I toss that as well, but I miss, and Ryder glares over at me. Open the fucking fanny pack, he screams. Roxy laughs. What's in it? Leaning back on my knees, I unzip it and show her the grenades inside. Do you always keep your grenades there? She inquires, the firing still going on around us. Not always. Sometimes I keep knives or tacos in it, I murmur as I palm one. Tacos? She echoes. I get hungry when I fight. I shrug and pull the pin, tossing one, and then cover her. Yeah, I really feel like that does distill the humor in this book down to its very essence. It's got this like kind of so random, quirky millennial thing going on. I felt numb inside by the time I was done reading this. This book is a thing that happened to me. It's not a thing that I experienced with joy and love and light in my heart. Love. Love is enduring. Love is blind. Love is messy and so perfect. We search our entire lives for it, even when we think we aren't. I guess I wasn't either, but I found it anyway in the form of 4 criminals. Their hearts as dark as their souls. The thing is, I never tried to fight them, not really. I guess a part of me recognized them. And even though my mind was muddled with betrayal and anger, deep down we clicked like pieces of a puzzle slotting us together. Yeah, it's a 1 star from me. Pros are that, again, for the most part, this was way more consensual, honestly, than I expected. So that's cool. I'm glad that Roxy was having the time of her life this entire book. Cons were everything else. I think that this book fundamentally altered my brain-body connection. I feel distant now from the girl that I once was. It's bad enough, honestly, that this will probably get its own video, so I'm gonna cut it there. It's comical that I have more books left in this vlog. In retrospect, this definitely should have been the last one, but we still have work to do. We still have things to explore. Next up is Bound by Honor by Cora Riley. This book actually predates TikTok. It's from 2014, but it's achieved new popularity during the mafia renaissance of the modern day. It has yet another really inspired cover, so I'm not going to be buying this one physically either. It's also going to be on my Kindle. And from the blurb, this appears to be another arranged marriage where a mafia princess is forced to marry the eldest son of another mafia family. But I get the vibe that the protagonist here is less of a baddie and more of like a virginal, pure girl. We'll see where it goes. Open mind. I'm going in still with an open mind, okay? Dude, are these like real gangs? I feel like this is the 3rd book in a row and they've had like the exact same names in every book. Oh my god, it is real. You're telling me that they're using actual mafias? I feel like I understand dark romance more when it's just some extremely ambiguously wealthy man who has ambiguous criminal connections and just does things that are kind of morally corrupt as a free agent, because using real gangs is insane. Like, gang violence may be one of the least hot things I can think of. And if you're going to do the mafia thing, why can't we invent our own chapters of the mafia? Why do we have to parlay ones that already exist into the lore of our world? Why is this video already an MCU that just has several different versions of the Triad and of the Bratva, you know? I don't get it, but whatever. You were like a skittish doe in the clutches of a wolf. I'm not going to maul you. Wow, Riz. Okay, hi, this is the halfway update. So this book follows Aria, who is the eldest daughter of some important Chicago Italian mafia man, and when she is the ripe age of 15 years old, she is betrothed to Luca, who is the heir of the New York Italian mafia. Fortunately, Aria's mother negotiates the terms of that, so they wait until she is 18 and he is 23 before they officially wed. How cool. And the wedding sequence is really where we start this book, and it's just deeply, deeply trad. But the worst bit is that they do the thing where you have to bring out the bloody sheets the morning after from the room to prove that the bride was virginal and pure and lady and not like hoe scum. This is a very important tradition to his side of the family, to the point where when they're on their way to their room after the reception, quote, a large crowd, mainly consisting of men, followed after us, their chant of bed her, growing louder as we entered the house and ascended the staircase toward the master bedroom on the 2nd floor, like literally following them up to the room, which is a lot to take in. But fortunately, behind closed doors, Luca has the chivalry, the kindness, the bare minimum amount of respect for her humanity to not like SA her when she's clearly uncomfortable. And instead he like cuts himself a little bit on the sheets so that way they can show them in the morning how kind. And he says something along the lines of like, when I finally bed you, I want you quaking from pleasure, not fear, which, okay. But yeah, everything is fine. They fly out to New York. She moves in with him. And then no more than 2 days later, like 48 hours post-wedding, Arya walks in on him cheating on her with somebody who went to their wedding that she met, all because he's dissatisfied that she's not putting out within 2 days of having never kissed a man before. Luca has needs, okay? Luca has things that he requires that cannot be sated by his man hands alone, apparently. And he really doesn't properly apologize. He like kind of half-heartedly is like, what about we just restart our marriage today? As if they didn't get married 2 days ago and he's not already ignoring his promise of fidelity. And she's kind of mad about this, but then accepts it regardless because he's really sexy and cool. And like maybe she can come to love her husband, her betrothed. And that's about where I'm at right now. But I imagine what comes next is that she's going to forgive him like instantly. And then at some point soon, he will deflower her and it will be made into this big thing. She'll probably get kidnapped or ransomed or something. And then he'll rescue her. They'll have their like tearful I love you scene and then we'll be done and I'll be free of this. Honestly, like, again, I feel so unbelievably cooked by Den of Vipers that really this isn't even that bad. If you just read this as a horror piece about arranged marriage and crime and the lack of agency that women sometimes have in these situations, like it's not the worst. The writing is like Booker Prize level compared to Den of Vipers, which to be fair is a bar that is quite low. And also it's only taken me like an hour and a half to read this much of the book. And that is a kindness that I value more than words could possibly describe. I feel like I could have liked Luca maybe if he hadn't done the whole infidelity within 48 hours of marital union thing. I mean, his primary personality traits are rich, has cold steel gray eyes, and threatening to dismember any man that touches Arya. That's really all he is. Honestly, he's really only like a third of a full human being, and Arya's not much better. Her only personality traits are just being scared and upset and pure. So I don't know, like this is not good, but I feel like in some ways it is cleansing nevertheless. And I'll say more when I finish it, okay? Okay. Well, hello, I'm done. Instead of the 90% kidnapping, we got the 90% gunfight. So I was close, but not 100% correct. In general, I find books that fixate on the mysticality of virginity to be like really, really weird. It is just deeply uncomfortable to take such an imaginary concept and like blow it up into an entire book during Pride Month, no less, because that's really what this was. It was just the female main character being like, no, I'm okay. I really don't feel like going all the way right now. I want to take it slow. And the male main character, on the other hand, every single day just being like, please, please smash me. I know I asked yesterday and you said no, but today is new and I'll be so cool and also please, until a whopping 1 week passes and then she just gives in. And the most baffling part of all of this to me was that even in this fantasy world of mafia smut, Arya still has a bad time. She agrees to it, she's down, but she describes the experience as being 10 out of 10 pain because she was just that pure and unsullied and he is a gigantic mountain man, I guess. And like at that point, if you're gonna make it this whole thing for the entire book, if being a virgin is going to be this woman's only personality trait, at least make her have a good time, at least make him competent, at least make this smut worth the wait. Just didn't quite hit the target for me, I don't think. Really no plot to be seen in this book other than the betrothal of her younger and much sassier sister, who is still a minor by the way, to Luca's younger brother, and then the gunfight between the boys and the Russian mafia that happens at the end for ambiguous reasons that really seem to just come down to we're enemies and this happens sometimes because we're enemies and you have enemies in this world and isn't that scary? Other than that, nothing really improved from my halftime check-in, but also nothing really got that much worse, honestly. And I think that overall, even though it is, again, indescribable to me how much better this was than Den of Vipers, this is still a 1.5 star read. It's not that it was atrocious, it's more that there was just nothing good about it. I don't have anything good to say. So far this video, Brutal Prince is still king, which is really not where I expected this to go, but it's where we have gone. And next up, I'm going to be reading The Predator by Runix. What happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object in the field of death? Yeah, I can feel my brain leaking out of my ears. I'm not sure how many more books I'm going to be doing in this video. I initially planned on 5. We will see if I have the strength to go on.
When you gaze into the abyss also gazes into you. Nietzsche.
This is from the author's note. Please note, since the protagonist has an extremely high IQ, there are certain repetitive patterns to her thought. Things she finds fascinating, she repeats to herself over and over. That is why you will note certain phrases mentioned repeatedly through the book. Really? Really?
She'd even worn ballet flats in case she needed to run.
Okay, this is so minor, but like, what kind of tactical ballet flats is this woman wearing? Because if I'm planning to run for my life, I think that I would simply wear sneakers as opposed to shoes that are going to fly right the fuck off as soon as you take your first step over 5 miles an hour. It's so small, but I find it to be so stupid and suspicious. Like, it's as if an alien was trying to write human behavior based solely on observation off of like Google Images, but they don't really know what's going on. Like, that's what that line felt like to me. Oh, also worth noting that she wears these ballet flats on her adventure to go to a construction site. Like, what are you doing? This bitch is going to get tetanus.
I feel like this author 100% used to write LX Light Death Note fanfiction. That's all I will be sharing at this time.
Okay, let me give you the actual premise of this book, because at this point I feel like I know. So the main characters are Marana, who is the only daughter of the mafia family in the Shadowport, and then Tristan Kane, who is the adopted son of the Tenebrae outfit. Paging the earlier version of me, by the way, to tell her that we finally have a mafia book that invented its own chapters. God bless, even though the Shadowport is kind of stupid. But regardless, we are told in the author's note, and also very clearly in the book, that Marana is supposed to be some kind of genius. And before the events of this book, this is sincerely the lore, what I'm about to tell you. She was dating this guy named Jackson, and they were both developers, and he double dog dared her to code something that was incredibly complex, and she can't turn down a dare, so she did it. And she accidentally invents, as a result, what are described to us as being the nuclear codes. Those codes were her Frankenstein, a powerful monster that went wrong, out of her control. They could digitally deface anyone, extract out every dirty secret from the deepest parts of the web, and destroy entire governments, entire mobs, if it were to fall into the wrong hands. Now, what this code actually is, what it does, nobody knows for sure. Like, does it decrypt important information? Is it just really, really good at brute forcing through every password that has ever existed? We might never find out, but we are assured that it could spell not just the end of the mafia families, but also the end of the entire world, should it fall into the wrong hands. And Jackson, her ex, it turns out, was actually a spy that was sent, I guess, to get something like this out of her, since she was known to be a genius. Which, just imagine that you're on the phone with your boss to update him on your spying, and you're like, yeah, I think that she could invent some real apocalypse style stuff, but I just don't know how to get that out of her. You know what? I think I'm gonna try to double dog dare her. And then that works, like... What? But whatever. He steals this thumb drive that has the only copy of this code on it, and our book begins. Marana obviously wants to get this code back before it can cause any harm, so she traces the theft and the spying back to Tristan Kane, who she immediately decides from the jump that she wants dead. But after she kind of gets rocked trying to break into his house, it turns out that it probably wasn't Tristan and that he's getting framed for some reason. So now they have to work together to find this magical thumb drive before it's used once again to like bring about the end of the world or something. Also, Tristan clearly especially hates her for some reason that I imagine we're going to be learning more about later. I feel as if they have some kind of shared past thing going on that Marana is not privy to. But yeah, that's what's going on. That's the premise. And honestly, hot take, but I kind of fuck with it a little bit so far. At the very least, things are happening. There are events, there is intrigue and mystery. Even if none of the world building makes sense, at least I'm not bored. For a moment during this vlog, I feared that nothing would ever happen in a book ever again. So it's a breath of fresh air, truly, in that respect. But with that said, two things to note here. First up, I love that we have this alleged genius protagonist who once again has like coded the apocalypse. She's a woman in STEM, but she consistently does the dumbest shit. Like Jackson, her ex, calls her and is like, hey, meet me at this abandoned building in this construction site because I have the drive and like maybe we'll probably give it to you, who's to say? And she just goes without telling anyone. No questions asked, once again wearing ballet flats when this man has already betrayed her and the call was clearly sketchy. I don't know what she expected to get out of that, but it wouldn't have been my first course of action, personally. And later on, she's at this bar that is not controlled by her family, and she's like, hey, that bartender looks pretty suspicious, and I think that maybe he could spike my drink, so instead of getting alcohol, I'll just get orange juice. And then the bartender just spikes the orange juice instead, because newsflash, that's still a drink, and she gets roofied, and Tristan has to like protect her or whatever. So yeah, that's how our extremely high IQ genius is doing right now. Also, the writing is something else. Let me read you a selection. What the hell did he want? Damn it, the man was a book of blank pages written in invisible ink that she had no idea how to discover. So much information, so many answers in the book, and all she got was frustrated. There are places on your body that I know, he spoke, his free hand wrapping around the back of her neck, his grip strong, just on the periphery of threatening, as the gun stayed right above her racing heart. Places that you don't know, places where I can shoot and harm and you won't die. He leaned even closer, his whisper just a ghost across her skin as her neck craned to keep their gazes locked, his hand cradling her nape. his height looming above her, his eyes never moving from hers. Death isn't the main course, sweetheart. It's the dessert. Eyebrows in her hairline, even as a grin chased her lips. The sheer joy of being away from her house, from her life. So precious, even for a second. Me when my eyebrows are in my hairline. I don't even know exactly what that sentence is supposed to be. Oh, this one's good. Her breath seized in her throat at the voice coming from behind her. The voice she hadn't been able to forget for a week. The voice that had whispered the ways of murder into her skin like a lover's caress. The voice of hard whiskey and sin. And then, not 30 pages later, if voices could be drinks, his was a centuries-old vintage whiskey, rolling off the tongue, down the throat, leaving a trail of fire inside, making every cell in the body aware that it had been consumed. So true. Like, she is trying to serve so hard with all of these, and it's not the soup that she thinks that it is. But again, like, in a field with the books that we've seen so far in this video, honestly, I'm having a decent time, and that's about all that I can ask for at this point. I'm intrigued to see where we go from here, what masterpiece portions of this book I'll be reading to you from my Kindle next. She didn't even know who she was anymore in so many ways. Had she lost the fire somewhere along the way? Get what you need. Whiskey and sin, molten lava and dancing flames. No, she hadn't lost the fire. It just lay dormant inside her most days. And what she couldn't figure out was why him? Why not Jackson, or any of her father's men, or even Dante for that matter? Why this man with the voice of sin and the body of a sinner? He called her fire forth like a mage, and she did not understand it. Really, what more is there to say than that? It speaks for itself. Okay, I feel so vindicated right now because I've gotten to the point reading this where, like, it's not a bit anymore. Like, I am so sure that this book was once a fan fiction and just had its names changed. If you've read a lot of fan fiction, you'll understand because sometimes you just know, and I had to look it up. And sure enough, if the Redditors can be trusted, this was once an Arrow fan fiction. It's an Oliver X Felicity Mafia AU. And I'm just glad my radar is still functional. Like, I'm glad that I still know what's going on. I still have, like, my finger on the pulse, if you will.
Not our genius protagonist admitting to crimes via texts from her personal phone number.
Okay, I finished it. And apparently, as I have now learned, there is a second book for this couple. So I haven't even completed their story, which honestly is extremely rude. But yeah, this one is all I'm committing to for now. It has kind of an ambiguously happy ending, so I'm gonna call it good at this time. The best way I can describe this book to you is that it feels like reading something off of like page 6 of your favorite ship on AO3. Like, the reason I clocked it earlier as fan fiction is because it has that very particular kind of insufferable repetitive prose and circular thought patterns that you see a lot in mid fan fiction. Like, listen to this. Hushed. Everything hushed. He stilled even more, impossibly. She stilled even more, reflexively. The air between them stilled, dangerously. Or this one as well. She yelled even louder, unashamed, unbound, unchained. She let herself feel deeper, uncaring, unhinged, unabashed. It was just a bike. It was just a ride. It was just a man. It just was. Really, all that's missing, in my opinion, are the author's notes between chapters that are like, so sorry guys for the lack of updates. I had finals and then also got into a car crash where I broke both of my legs, but I'm back. So I hope that you enjoy and please forgive my grammar. Haha, thank you. And honestly, for that reason, I think that this was probably my favorite thing that I've read for this video because, like, hear me out. There is something uniquely camp and enjoyable about reading trashy mid fanfic books once you know that they're fanfic books. Every time the smile didn't reach her eyes, every time she let go of the breath that she didn't know that she was holding, I felt like I was holding hands with myself at 16, just eyes glazed over in my bed, reading Sherlock one-shots until the wee hours of the morning. That was kind of what this experience reminded me of, because, like, on one hand, you have like the really excellent fan fiction that makes you want to defend fanfic as an art form, as a uniquely modern creative pursuit, as a really important community venture for an entire generation of people. But then on the other hand, you have the fan fiction that you also read that is just kind of mid, that you just pick up because you like the couple, and it doesn't really matter if they're actually that good, because you kind of just want to read something that's cute and indulgent that will pass the time and make you perhaps smile a little bit as a treat. That's more so the kind of fanfic that this reminded me of, and that's still intensely nostalgic to me as a style of writing because I read so much of it. But with that said, I'm still giving this 2 stars because it's not good. Like, the writing is at once so absurdly flowery and pretentious, but somehow still so bad and ill-conceived, and the plot that was happening at the beginning, where I was kind of having a good time, even if it was like deeply unserious, it completely evaporated in the back half of this this book and was replaced with Tristan and Marana staring at each other, or Marana feeling Tristan staring at her even though she can't see him, or Marana dwelling while staring at him about whether or not they should hook up again. Like, this book had in the back half a wild amount of dwelling and repetition that, and this might surprise you, is kind of just a sign of bad writing. It's really not. That your character is just too smart for me to understand. Like, you kind of just wrote a repetitive book, and that's okay. Also, just while I'm here, like, the phrase whiskey and sin that I read to you earlier was used, I think, maybe 7 or 8 separate times to describe this man's voice. If reading this book was a drinking game, I would be plastered. But yeah, as for the plot, like with the resolution of the codes, Marana just gives up on finding them entirely because it's too hard, and she decides instead that she will code this counter code failsafe thing that will automatically activate whenever her old apocalypse code is used anywhere in the world, I guess, and it will destroy them so that way they can't be used for evil, which if that was something that she was capable of doing from the beginning, you'd have thought that that would be her first idea. Also, it just makes no sense at all, but that's a separate problem. We get a bit more plot other than that. Like, we learn about Tristan's backstory, which is really just unfortunate for him, and it ties into the overarching lore of this book, now the second book, I guess. But honestly, the overarching mystery feels extremely predictable to me, to the point where I'm not even that curious about what's going to happen. Like, I don't know, maybe it would surprise me if I kept going, but I kind of doubt it. As for Tristan, our dashing male lead, his entire personality is just having blue eyes. Like, you would think from the descriptions in this book that maintaining his magnificent blue orbs requires full-time effort from him. Honestly, he should make friends with Aaron Blackford from the Spanish Love Deception. Like, they should start a commune together. The girlies would pull up in droves. But yeah, so blue and so very blue. And just all the better to stare at you with, my dear, because he's also a man of remarkably few words. He kind of just stands there and breathes somewhat angrily while looking at her. Like, that's what I'm imagining. And Marana loses her mind over it because I guess he's just so hot and has such blue eyes. Like, during this climactic scene between the two of them, he fully does not say a single word the entire time. Marana gives this whole ass emotional monologue, and then they just look at each other, and then they kiss a bit, and then they just look at each other again, and then they leave, and the book is over. And I know that this was meant to be like this deeply serious moment, but the way I was laughing. When he's completely silent, when he has nothing to say to me, low-key, it did kind of cook though, but you didn't hear that from me. And yeah, with all of that said, I am somewhat intrigued by the rest of this series in a way that I am not at all with any of the other books in this video. Because again, if Brutal Prince was Wattpad coded, this was AO3 coded. It's not like standout good AO3 coded. It's more like that mid, trashy 200,000 word AU that you read in a daze in the middle of the night to keep the bad thoughts away, and then you tell nobody about it afterwards. Like, that's what this reminded me of. And that has a place in my heart. Like, I can't only read bangers that require thoughts and feelings. Sometimes it's nice to just dissociate into something that's completely ridiculous. So I might actually finish this series at some point, but that day is not today. I have read enough Mafia books in the past week for like the rest of the year, at least. I need to be free of this. Anyways, these are the final ratings for everything I read in this video. What have I learned? Stop picking up books based on the 2-slide slideshows on TikTok where the first slide is some kind of out of context quote and then the second slide is fan art. I don't think I've ever gotten a good recommendation from that video format before. As for Mafia romance as a whole, bits aside, I don't really think that 4 books can represent an entire subgenre that well. Even though we had a pretty bad time in this video, I still believe that it's possible that there are Mafia books out there that I could like. Especially because in fantasy, I really love organized crime. Six of Crows is the one that instantly comes to mind, but anything that's heisty or conniving or fun like that, I really tend to enjoy. And there have to be Mafia romances somewhere that have that kind of flavor, but then also have writing that doesn't make me want to like walk into the sea. I just don't know where they are, and they're not in this video, so take that as you will. But that's all for today. I need to call it here. I need to be done with this. If you like this video, please actually like it. I died for this, so I'd really appreciate it. Tell me your thoughts in the comments about this journey that we've just gone on together. And if you're not already subscribed, I regularly read both books like this that I quickly realize are not my flavor, but also books I like. We have range here at Newly Nova. But yeah, that's all. I don't have anything else to say. Bye!